Hello, everyone. You're listening to GydeBites, a podcast that delivers big L&D insights in small bites. Today, we are going to talk about transformating power data holds in a workplace, and we'll focus on how it improves employee experience as well. I'm your host, Prasanna Vaidya, CEO of Guide and AI-powered digital adoption platform. Joining us today is an expert in the field, Chiara Madrone. She's a global talent and performance director at Sodexo. Chiara, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. So let's jump right in, Chiara. So can you tell us a little bit about how data is changing the workplace for employees?
Sure. Well, I think there is two ways to look at the change from an organizational perspective. Being able to analyze and integrate multiple data points have resulted in a workplace that can be personalized to the employee, and the closer link between behaviors, then decisions, and ultimate outcomes for the organizations. And then on the other end, from an employee perspective, there is a clear advantage of benefiting from a more personalized experience at scale, but also the opportunity for an increased fairness and inclusivity, as data can reduce the emotional element of decision making and help with bias detection. Data can help measure and identify adjustments to create a more effective, fair, ethical, as well, and engaging workplace for employees. Although my view is that organization also needs to ensure efforts are targeting activities that would build trust with their employees. And these activities are often driven by the quality of managerial practices in an organization.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So, I mean, we have data everywhere, right? In every system, whatever we do, wherever we are going, we are creating a huge data footprint in a way. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you use that we get while using the data to specifically improve the employee experience as well, in a way?
Absolutely. And I think there are a number of watch outs in my experience. So I would say the first thing to think about is the employee trust and how that comes into anything related to data and sort of the collection of those data. And that can sometimes be a challenge. So if you think about engagement surveys, anonymity is key to gather accurate views. Or, for example, if you have a system in which you use, you perform your talent or your performance processes, who can see that type of data and to which purpose is extremely important. Nowadays, employees do ask these questions as a reflex. They want to know, they acknowledge, they have their knowledge of the data protection regulations. And organizations, in my view, really need to be able to respond to any privacy concerns or face the risk of mistrust of actually the data point that an employee can enter into any sort of systems in which we collect data. The other side of the trust element is the data trust. So I'm sure many can relate to having to present an analysis or some data insights on a given topic, and then to a group of senior leaders or to a group of people within your organizations, and having the data questions, the quality of the data and the sources questioned by the people. And this is often happens when there are uncomfortable decisions to make or there are insights that are uncomfortable. So the first reflex often can be a challenge. So this data, the trust in the data that are presented. And I think that another challenge, and one that I've experienced recently, is the challenge of keeping the data current and live. We all live in a very dynamic world at the moment. There's a lot of changes that are happening very quickly, especially around the nature of work. And so what that means that actually when you're using data to make decisions, if the data is no longer a representation of your current situation, that can be a challenge, and definitely one that you need to be aware of when thinking about insights and thinking on how things really take into place around, whatever decision you need to drive. And finally, there's one thing that is really close to my heart, and is really how HR as a function really kind of can have still some room to grow in terms of on all skills required to analyzing, interpreting, and storytelling data. And whether expertise really exists, then there is a fine balance to maintain a view that incorporates quantitative data, because those are the easy ones to get, and also the qualitative insights to drive that action that is needed. So in essence, I would say there is a enormous potential to enhance the employee experience through data, but the watch out I would definitely put forward are ensuring data privacy and the quality of the data, the awareness of any data lag. It's crucial. And then the HR competency level around the data analytics can really be a barrier if you want to use data in enhancing the employee experience.
Yeah. I mean, and then one more variable that is now recently added is AI, right? I mean, no conversation can end without talking about AI these days. So what we are doing, what everyone else is doing, and so on and so forth. So how how you see AI making a difference in changing the employee experience in a way?
Well, I guess there is how is it not making a difference, really? Because I think we kind of, and especially in the last year or so, there's been such an exponential usage of AI. It's no longer a side conversation. You said it's become a mainstream conversation. Everybody's talking about it, and everybody's asking questions around what's the best use of the technology, really. So many examples spring to mind on how the AI has actually helped the employee experience. And so, if you think about personalized learning suggestions based on your role, your skills, the sort of the projects you may have been part of, I've used this one in the past, the chatbots, but now it's sort of that we've seen an advancement in technology of how we actually use chats and chatbots and sort of artificial sort of assistance programs. So they now support the hiring process. They're actually matching candidates into roles that you may have available based on your CV or information that they gather as they literally chat with someone. So incredible sort of advancement of experience, something that we couldn't do without the technology itself, because it would require way too many people and way too much effort to do so. The support in onboarding. So again, onboarding, I've been almost 20 years in the industry, in a number of different industries, actually, but in the HR function, and onboarding has always been the topic on how best to accelerate this phase of between bringing someone from the outside into the organization and making them, productive and ready for work. Lots of support through the AI into onboarding, and a topic that is one of my favorites at the moment, anything related to performance management and also talent. So AI, we've seen it supporting writing feedback, for example, supporting setting measurable goals for your employees. So really supporting these management practices that often, if you're new to having a team, setting objectives, giving feedback, etc., can really help you get very quickly to a proficiency that we haven't seen in the past. And then the there is a whole stream around sentiment analysis and analytics. So really, this is extremely interesting because it really helps the organization think about retention in a different manner, catching employees that might be thinking about leaving before they even realize that and to start looking outside. So there are so many ways now in which, the integration of different data points can provide a picture that is extremely valuable for the organization. And I mean, I'm sure that those that work into multi-country or very complex organization will appreciate the advancements into everything that is workforce planning, predictive analytics around workforce. So now we can actually tie that into career pathing and learning attached to those career pathing, whether before everything was just ever so slightly a bit of a lag. We were always, as HR, a bit on the back foot on these sort of topics. And now we can provide suggestions, we can provide elements without even for the employee to explore. So we don't really need to be there for every employee. We actually can provide those at scale, meaningful, personalized. And I think that it's an incredible advancement in everything that AI can provide us in terms of not only the employee experience, but generally speaking, managing people within an organizational context. And maybe the last thing that I would add, some of us do speak in multiple languages, but for those working in an international context, I think it's incredible the amount of progress that we've seen through AI into language analysis, into language translations, into being able to interpret different languages and, maintaining communication flowing within the organization. I think 10 years ago, we would see this and we would actually had to do a lot of effort into these sort of topics, whether now, we have lots of tools at the touch of a button that can actually help us navigate different languages, different cultures sometimes, and they keep on getting better. So I think that really helps also from a fairness, from an inclusivity perspective. And it's sort of, in my view, it is really breaking down some of the barriers that we couldn't tackle without technology.
Yeah, I mean, so much is happening with AI, right? I mean, every part of what we do, from onboarding, performance management to speaking in different languages, everything, like it's sort of taking every bits and pieces where the problems are, and it's just solving it. So, Chiara, one question that came to my mind was, can you share a specific example of how AI or data has boosted the employee experience? So that's what was on my mind next.
Sure. Well, I'm going to give an example. Unfortunately, for this one, we didn't really use AI, but definitely some good old data analytics, I guess. So, well, this example is specifically around diversity and inclusivity and how really data can help making the workplace a more fair one for our employees. And so my example is related to an analysis I led on performance evaluations. So a data point that is often very available in many organizations. We done this analysis on a specific group of executives, and we looked at the employee self-evaluations and their comparisons with the manager view, and then cross-referenced with gender data. And what we found was that women were less likely to propose to their managers about self-evaluations that were on the higher end of the scale. And then this then continued into having seen that depending on the gender of the manager, there seemed to have been a trend of maintaining the score that was proposed. So it's sort of a conservative, let's put it this way, score, twice as much compared to male employees. So again, potential bias, a number of potential dynamics in place, but what we then done is then cross-reference what we were starting to see in terms of insights with other data points coming from engagement surveys, and starting to then link it into identify retention risk for the organization. So this has then allowed the talent team to proactively engage with the employees as part of the wider group. And again, not only female, but everybody is part of the group that we were targeting, offering career development opportunities, offering career discussions as part of sort of a targeted activities. And this we've seen has improved employee satisfactions and ultimately reduced the retention risk that we had started to see happening. So leveraging data, really, you see that there is a direct correlation on the data and then the insights and then the activity to then minimize whatever risk you have identified or whatever insights you have identified. And sometimes insights are actually positive. So you see positive trends and you see different things, but often we then sort of focus on the challenge. And this for me has really been one of those examples in which we've been able to promptly work on a specific issue around the employee experience that we were seeing, bubbling that up before it became too much of an issue. And so it really help within the inclusivity arena and also from a development perspective. We do want employees to be happy and to continue working into an environment that they believe it's fair. And I'm going to go back to the employee trust before. Not only there is the managerial practices that needs to be refocused sometimes, but also making sure that these mechanisms of checking exists and drive action, it really builds trust with the organization overall. Then therefore they can actually take care of practices that might not be going in the right direction.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, as they say, right, every data tells some story and it comes with some insight. So it's fascinating how organizations at your scale can actually consume and get that data and, I mean, provide a solution to a specific objective pain point that's about to get really scary in a way.
Yes.
So, Chiara, lastly, right? So, what trends people should look for in employee experience? So, what maybe like 3-5 years down the line, where what things will be?
Well, there is definitely one that springs to mind, and actually, this is my favorite. Maybe because it just sits with my own personality very well. I'd love to see it really in action and being able to use it fully. And that is anything related to employee experiences platforms. So I guess this is not a new trend. We've seen the rise of these before. I think though it speaks to me because it's a simpler way for employees to experience the organization, and now technology can really provide that integration to make it reality. A few years ago, the goal was definitely to integrate the HR processes, so your talent, your performance practices, whatever the engagement practices, in some instances, the feedback, possibly some social aspects of the workplace. So, for example, some recognition activities, some of communication tools, if you had communication tools within your organization. And now this is coming out of the HR traditional arena, and we're looking at platforms that integrate your day-to-day role with what is your life as an employee. So they're really personalized. They include things such as expenses, budget projections, supply chain information, emails, calendars. It can all fit into a tool that is really there to support productivity and performance. And I think for me, this is really the ultimate goal, is actually how can we leverage technology and taking employee experience beyond the HR function, and then really as a subject that is really about removing barriers, instilling fluidity in the employee day-to-day life, automating administrative tasks, of course, and really empower our employees to perform at their best.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it sort of takes us from where we are and maybe where we will be in like 3, 5, maybe 7 years. We don't know. Thank you so much, Chiara, for those very objective, very actionable, very beautiful insights that you have shared. So before we wrap up, right, do you have any quick tip for new generation of HR and learning and development professionals that are out there?
I'm not sure. I think it's I think there is transformation all around us. Let's face it, and so I think it will be an interesting place to be HR specifically, because I think we're now taking a center stage that's never really been ours before, in a way, and so this is really the place to be, in a way. I really kind of feel that taking care of people as part of organizational processes, etc., this will become more and more important as we face all of the different challenges that we see around.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I mean, at the end of the day, if we take care of people, most of the things get solved, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Chiara, and we wish we'll have the episode out soon, and we'll have you back for another one sometime soon.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much. It was lovely to chat about these topics with you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all our viewers, listeners, and thanks for tuning in to GydeBites. Please remember to subscribe to podcast for more details and small bites and big insights. Until next time, keep learning and growing. Goodbye.